Shabbat Shalom, happy Sabbath. This morning our subject is an ambassador in chains. An ambassador in chains. That's the subject this morning that we would like to look at what Yahweh has to say to us. We want to glean from this morning. And so we want to understand what it means to be an ambassador of the kingdom. What it means. One of the ironies, I think, of the governing structure of the U.S. government is that they have a tendency to place the senator as the highest ranking official over the ambassador, knowing that the senator represents only his state, whereas the ambassador represents the country, the whole country. And so the thing is this, that an ambassador is a representative of the whole domain, the whole kingdom, the whole empire, and speaks to that regard. Therefore, the ambassador has to know the culture of the kingdom, the principles, the laws, the ordinances, the history, everything about the country that he or she represents. And so in America, we have the senator who is a representative basically from the legislative branch, whereas the ambassador is an executive appointment. And so when the apostle Shaul speaks of himself as an ambassador in chains, he's letting you know that even though he is in chains, he is in prison, at the time he was speaking, waiting to see Caesar, he's letting you know, I'm a representative of the kingdom of Yeshua. So turn with me this morning to the book of Ephesians, and we will take as our meditational text verses 19 and 20. The word says, "And for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the glad tidings, for which I am an ambassador in bonds." I am an ambassador in chain. I am in prison, as I ought to speak. Shaul says, I want the people to pray for me, to give me utterance, the perspicuity of thought, and the lucidity of words. So when I go before the officials, when I go before Caesar, I can present the message of the kingdom, this gospel, this good news of the kingdom, so people will understand the clarity of the message. I myself this morning pray for that and ask Yah to give me the wisdom, the understanding as we present this message. So as we read here in chapter 6 of Ephesians, verses 19 and 20, the succinct brevity of the text reveals the economy of words, but not the concision of meaning, and clearly not the volume of substance that we will pursue. A kingdom is not a democracy, neither is it a republic. The king reigns supreme in a kingdom. Take, for example, in the United Kingdom, we have currently King Charles III. He is not an absolute monarchy. Rather, it is a constitutional monarchy, meaning that the king is head of state, but he has invested his authority and powers in an elected parliament, wherein the prime minister, Keir Starmer, currently is the one who rules. And so King Charles' duties, they are largely ceremonial. But that's not what we're talking about this morning. When Shaul says, I am an ambassador in chains. And all of us are ambassadors. If you come with me to 2 Corinthians and chapter 5, and we will take verse 20, it says, now then, we are ambassadors of the Messiah, as though Elohim did beseech you by us. We pray you in Messiah's stead, be reconciled to Yahweh. We're all ambassadors in that we represent the kingdom of Yah. And so, as I indicated earlier, if you represent the kingdom, you must know the culture. You must know the law. You must know the scriptures. How then could you go abroad and speak about your country, about your kingdom, if you know not the history and the laws of your country? How could you do that? And so, from a biblical point of view, and in that context of our study today, the ambassador has the highest ranking. He has the highest ranking. And Corinthians chapter 5, 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 20 is letting us know all of us are ambassadors of the kingdom. And when you are an ambassador of the kingdom that you represent pay all your bills, takes care of all your problems. You are immune from prosecution. You are. It doesn't mean you don't keep the laws of the country that you're living in, but your powers come from the state, the country, the empire, the kingdom that you belong to. And in our context, we're talking about the kingdom of Yahweh. We are ambassadors of that kingdom. So think now, when a person says to you, but I don't know where to find that. I don't know the scriptures very well. How are you going to represent your country, your kingdom, when you don't know the laws of the country? How are you going to do that? Notice when you go anywhere and you go to the airport and you're visiting another country, the first thing that they look at is your passport. Why do they want your passport? They want to see the kingdom that you represent and the kingdom that is backing you. And if you get in trouble in that kingdom where you're visiting, all you have to do is to go to the ambassador. And so A point worth waiting for is this. Many of the countries that Yah has, shall we say, diplomatic relations with, wherever he has a covenant with people in whatever country, he always has an embassy there. And in this context of our study, that embassy is usually called the assembly, the temple, the synagogue. That's what we call these places, or indeed the most common, the church. It's an embassy where ambassadors congregate each Sabbath, like ourselves here, to discuss matters of the kingdom. That's what we're doing. Strategically, prophetically, politically, and otherwise, in terms of how these things affect the kingdom of Yah. And therefore, anyone who violates the constitution of the kingdom, which is the word of Yah here, that's the constitution that Yahweh spoke from Mount Sinai and said, this is how I want my ambassadors to live. Anyone who violates those terms, they are considered persona non grata. You are prohibited from the kingdom. So we want you to know this morning that in order to avoid being a persona non grata, somebody who is prohibited from the kingdom, because when we read in Revelation chapter 22 and verse 15, we're told that the dogs are outside. That's what the word tells us, that the children, the ambassador, they go in through the gates, but the dogs are outside. So come with me also to 1 Corinthians chapter 6. We will read verses 9 and 10. Do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom? Did you know that? They will not inherit the kingdom of Yahweh. Do not be deceived, neither fornicators. These are persona non grata. They are prohibited from the kingdom. Neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, malachi, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revelers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of Yah. These are persona non grata. They are prohibited from the kingdom. And therefore, we who are ambassadors who come each week to study the constitution of Yahweh, of the kingdom, we must let people know that. We must let them know that. And so, as I indicated earlier, if you're a teacher, you must know your subject. You must know your subject. You must know the word of Yah, and you must study the word of Yah to show yourself approved unto Yahweh. But there are hidden things, Paul says, I want you to pray for me so that I may be able to teach the mystery of the good news. What he's saying, that mystery of the good news that was hidden from the people before him was that even the Gentiles would become heir to the promise. But that was kept from them, and that's what Shaul is letting us know. But I want to share something with you to show you what I mean by understanding the word of Yah. Come with me to the Song of Songs. And we will take chapter 1, and we will read the Song of Songs, which is slow-mo, Solomon, if we anglicize him. Let him kiss me, says the Shumalite, with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine. Because of the savor of thy fragrant oil, thy name is as an oil poured forth, therefore do the virgins love thee. Solomon, they all love you. You attract them. There's something about you. They just fall in love with you. Your mind is like a magnet. You attract them. Draw me. We will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than wine. The upright love thee. The what? The upright, the righteous love him. Now you understand why the Queen of Sheba had traveled all that distance to meet this gracious king, the wise king, this sagely king, just to hear his wisdom. Take 5, verse 5. I am black but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar and the curtains of Solomon. Shikora ani vina ava. Let me say that again. Shikona ani vira ana. She's saying, I am black and comely. Notice what the King James does here. The King James says, I am black, but comely. What am I saying? I'm saying, as I indicated earlier, when you read Yah's word and when you study Yah's word, you have to look at the intertestes that are there, that men have put in. The word here is vav in this word. That is linking two statements. He said, I am black. The King James, 54 scholarly white men took out the vav. Vav is a word, Hebrew word, the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it has a numeric value of 6. And it points to man who was created on the 6th day, according to Bereshit 1, verse 26. They took out the vav and they put but. There is no but in the Hebrew. So the word is this, that vav connects two things that are of equal value. This woman is saying, I am black and comely, equal. The King James said, I am black, but, introducing a contrast in there. It was never there in the original. And the King James in 1611, all they were doing, they were following what St. Jerome had done in the late 4th century, in that he was the one who translated the Bible of the Catholic Church. That's what he did. The Vulgate Bible. He translated it. And so the King James just followed on and left that arrow in there, as if the woman, this black woman, was apologizing for being black. I am black, but There is no but there. It is vav. And we would use vav in the Hebrew in the same word we use and in English. And to link to two things. And so the point in all of that is that when you are an ambassador, you must know your country. You must know the laws and the principles. You must know the writing, the constitution of your kingdom. And so when Paul said, even when they put you in chains, you understand because your mind is not in chains. We want to make that point. And so we should understand that to be an ambassador, you need to speak with the perspicuity of thought and the lucidity of words so that people will understand your kingdom. When Yah made Adam, he said, "Come, let us make man in our own image, in our own likeness, in our own character. Let's make him that way." And he made them male and female, which suggests to us that man is plural. So Yah was not making just one man, he was making a species of men, a whole species, because the word says all men were in, as we discussed last week, Adam's loins. So man is a species. Collectively, we give him a collective noun, and so we use man is, but man are. We're talking about the plural one here, a reflector of the Creator. We need to understand that. Because if you don't understand that and you study the word and you teach others things that are not true, you then inadvertently make yourself a persona non grata. You will be disqualified from the kingdom. That's why James says, not all people should be teachers. So we have to understand that. So we've heard it said that people should not pay tithes. You see, the reason I'm addressing these things, it's the ambassador must know the laws of the country. And we must know the expectation, the laws of Yahweh. And so you've heard people running around saying, you mustn't pay tithes. I'm not preaching in tithe, but that's one of the laws in the kingdom. Come with me to Ephisyim chapter 7. That's Hebrews. And we will take verses 1 and 2. For this Melchizedek, when we anglicize him, we call him Melchizedek. For this Melchizedek, sovereign of Shalem, king of Salem, Cohen of the Most High, Elohim, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the sovereigns, and barak him and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth. He gave a tenth part of all that he had. First of all, translated as sovereign of righteousness, and then also sovereign of Shalem, that is sovereign of peace. So that's Abraham. After he annihilated the kings, he came and he met Melchizedek. And we know this from previous study, that this is Shem. We know that. Shem being the ninth Melchizedek. And therefore, we ought to understand that Melchizedek, other than the ultimate Melchizedek, which is Yeshua, the Prince of Peace, Melchizedek is an office occupied by people over different people over the years. And Noah was the eighth Melchizedek. This is why when you read in Peter, Kepher, I should say, says he was a preacher of righteousness, meaning that he was a Melchizedek. And so his son was the one whom Abraham met. And he gave him a tenth. And the word said when Abraham paid tithes, Levites paid tithes also. Hear me? Now, let's seek the perspicuity and the lucidity of thought that will make you understand what I'm about to say. Abraham is paying tithes from all that he brought back. Are we to assume that Abraham only brought back vegetables? Cabbage and carrots, and because I hear people say, they only paid tithes in vegetables. No. When you raid a country and you loot it, you often find gold and money and you bring that too. So it is naive to think that Abraham brought vegetable. What was Melchizedek going to do with all the vegetables? Come on, let's think. In fact, let's read Bereshit chapter 14, and we will take verses 18 to 20. And Melchizedek, sovereign of Salem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was a Cohen, he was a priest of the Most High Elohim, and he baraked him and said, Barak be Abraham of the Most High Elohim, professor of the Shemaim, that's the heavens and earth, and Barak be the Most High Elohim, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him a tenth, a tithe of all. So there are many years separating Abraham when Abraham lived from the Levites. But he said, because the Levites were in the same loins of Adam, they paid tithe even though they were not yet born. Now, if you understand anything about law, you'll understand that the precedent is this, that higher courts binds lower courts. If the local magistrate makes a decision, a legal decision regarding a client, regarding a prisoner, you could take that to the Crown Court, or you could take that to the High Court, or you could take that to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court being the highest. And whatever the Supreme Court says, it binds, it can overrule what the lower court says. What point am I making? Simply this, that the Melchizedek order, kingdom, is higher than the Levites, the priesthood. Come with me to Bereshit. Well, let's go to Exodus. That's Shemot. Let's go to Exodus, and we will do chapter 19. Exodus chapter 19. I want to make the point for you so you see it for yourself and you can study it for yourself. Let's take verse 5, reading on. Now, therefore, this is Yahweh speaking on Mount Sinai. Children of Israel had left Egypt, and Moses had gone up to Mount Sinai, and Yah is speaking to him to let him know how he wants the ambassadors, the newly appointed ambassadors, to live. He says, now therefore ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my what? Covenant. Keep my covenant. If you don't keep my covenant, you're going to be persona non grata. Then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Verse 6, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of Cohens, a kingdom of priests. Notice the covenant offered here to the children of Israel, that every single person would be a Cohen, would be a priest. That's the Melchizedek order of priesthood. That's what Abraham paid tithe in. So if Abraham paid tithe in this, it means this is a higher court, a higher standing. Therefore, the Levites is a lower court, legally. So you cannot judge on what Levi did. You must go back to what Melchizedek did. Because the word says in Luke 16:16, the laws and the prophets were preached up until Johanan, were preached up until John. Now the kingdom. So Shaul is telling you, the message that I have, the message that we preach must be the kingdom preach. And we, the ambassador, must tell people about how to live in the kingdom. You cannot live in the kingdom and say you won't pay tax. You hear people say, but hold on, we're only supposed to give a free will offering and give with a willing heart, a free will. They don't know the word. They cannot be ambassador because they don't know the laws of their country. They don't know the laws of the kingdom. A free will offering is what you decide to give after you have given a tithe. A tithe is a set amount, 10% of what you earn. That's a tithe. You don't decide that. Yah says, this is what I want. A free will offering is different. And you cannot give a free will offering until you have given a tithe. So when Paul says we are ambassadors, you cannot go abroad and say you're a teacher or you're a preacher and you're telling other foreigners about your kingdom and you don't know the law. You don't know the law. You will be to me a kingdom, a priest. Now let us go to Bereshit, as I indicated before, chapter 28, and we will take verse 20. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if Yahweh will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread, if he will give me bread to eat, and raiment to put on, so that I come again in my father's house in peace, then shall Yahweh be my Elohim at this time, which I have set for a pillar, shall be Yah's house, and all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto him. I will give him a tithe. So Abraham paid tithe, and Jacob, his grandson, is paying tithe. Remember, Levi is not yet born. But we read in Hebrews chapter 7, that while Abraham paid, because Abraham is a higher court, Levi already paid tithe. They could not pay tithes. So when you come to the New Testament, and I hear people say, but it's not in the New Testament, you must only give, it's already established. It's already established in the word. You don't need to go to court and the judge has to explain to you that if you kill somebody, it's a crime. It's already established in the Constitution of heaven. Thou shalt not kill. That's elementary. And we ought to know that. So you can't be an ambassador if you don't know your Constitution. And people are teaching these things and the people are listening. No, so they pay tithes. And so in ancient religious context, tithes were a mandatory tenth part of one's income, given for the support of the institution of its work. Whereas free will offerings were voluntary gifts given from the honesty of the heart for specific needs or to express your gratitude. That's the difference. So the difference lies in the compulsory nature of tithing versus the discretionary offering. One is compulsory, one is mandated, and one is discretionary. Don't go teaching foolishness to people and having them becoming persona non grata of Yah's kingdom. When we speak of the kingdom of Yah, it is not a republic. It is not a democracy. You don't vote a king in, and you can't vote him out. When Yahweh made Adam, he said, Adam, you have dominion, you have domain, king domain. The king reigned over a domain, a king domain. That's what it means, kingdom. And so often when I hear the word of Yah speaks, people in churches, in assemblies, oh, we're going to have a business meeting, and we're going to have an elders meeting, and we're going to vote on this to see. That's a democracy. Yah doesn't operate in a democracy. He is the king, and the king's word is law. His word, Isaiah 55 and verse 11, will not return unto him void. It will accomplish that which he said. So how can you vote on what Yah said? Foolish Galatians? You can't vote on something that Yah says, this is how it ought to be done. Let's go back to Ephisyim chapter 7, and we'll do verses 8 and 10. And here men that die receive tithe. Men that what? Die receive tithe, but there he receiveth them of whom it is witness that he liveth. And as I may say so, Levi also, who receiveth tithe, paid tithes in Abraham. They what? They paid tithes in Abraham. Don't miss that. For he was yet in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. Levi was not born, he was in the loins of his father when he met Abraham. That's why Shaul now, who is an ambassador, understand the context. So he goes to Galatians 3 and he takes up verse 29 and he says, if you are in Yeshua, if you're what? In Yeshua, then are you Abraham's seed. How can you be Abraham's seed and you are not doing what Abraham did? Foolish Galatians. He said that covenant that was made with Abraham, the law that was made after, the Levitical law, cannot annul it. It cannot be annulled. So many are going around saying they're going to, because it was paid in vegetables. I find it amazing that people could bring their thinking, their faculties to this level. But let's read Devarim chapter 14, and we will do 24 and 25. It says, and if the way be too long for thee, if the way that you're traveling, if you're leaving from where you are to go to Jerusalem, and it's a long distance, and remember, for many people who live in the rural parts, it was a very long journey. You remember when Yeshua was 12 years old, his mother and father, earthly father, took him to Jerusalem to celebrate one of the feasts. And they left him behind. And on their way home, 3 days' journey, they had to turn back. And when they went back, they saw him among the lawyers and the doctors asking and answering questions. So to give you the point here is that it was a long travel, and they had to bring their tithes and their offering to Jerusalem each year. This is what the word says. It says, and if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place too far from thee, which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose to set his name there, when Yahweh your Elohim barak you, bless you, then shalt thou turn it into money. It says, sell the produce and turn it into money, and bind up the money in thine hand, and shall go in the place which Yah your Elohim shall choose. So even back then, they were given money. And people are teaching that they only gave in vegetables. So I want to make the point again, because it cannot be too often made. I cannot exhaust this, that the hierarchy of courts, decisions made by a higher court are binding on the lower courts within the same geographical jurisdiction. This ensures consistency and predictability in how the law is applied. So if we are children of Abraham who pay tithes, we are in the same theological and faithful jurisdiction. We cannot say we will not pay tithe. We've got to understand all of that. So let's continue with the point here, that to the law, according to Yeshayahu, that's Isaiah 8 and verse 20, to the law and to the testimony, if they what? If they speak not according to the word of Yah, there is no truth. They are not ambassadors. That's what he's saying. Yah may say, that's the book of Acts, chapter 9 and verse 15, but Yeshua said unto him, speaking to Shaul, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the kingdom of Israel. As I indicated earlier, when you're an ambassador, you are an embodiment of the kingdom. You speak for the kingdom. I hope you understand that. You are an embodiment of the whole kingdom. And this is why when we read the scriptures, it is letting us know that when Yeshua came, Yeshua was, he says, all the fullness of the Yahweh was in him. All the fullness of the kingdom was in one man. Therefore, when you become an ambassador, you are speaking as one man, as an embodiment, as an expression of the whole kingdom. That's why you have to know the law. And Yeshua often had to point out to the people and ask them, did you not read? Did you not read? Next question would have been, did you understand what you read? And did you have the wisdom to apply the knowledge that you gain through reading? Often, it's not only having the knowledge and having the wisdom, but it's the application of all of that. Did you have that? That's what you need to be an ambassador in Yah's kingdom. So Yah obviously expressly speak the commandments on Mount Sinai, written in tablets of stones with his own finger, illustrating their unique status as a guide for their relationship with Yahweh and for others. So they serve as a core moral principles upon which the rest of the laws are built. These two, they ask him, which is the greatest commandments? They're referring to 613 laws, and they're trying to trap him, saying, which is the greatest? He says, love Yah and love your fellow men. Let the other 611 be pinned on these. And so the world is conduced into a kind of puissant kind of anxiety. And end-time believers, we don't have the same self-indulgent luxury of conforming to the creedal position of the churches anymore. We don't have that. We should take divine guidance from the absolute cognizance of Yah's word. We must. Let no man deceive you in any means, says Yeshua. Don't let your pastor do it. Don't let your elder do it. Don't let the bishop. Don't let the doctor, the pharmacist, the supermarket. Don't let any man, the attorney, the judge. Don't let it happen. But we so often employ this nonchalant attitude which frustrate genuine scholarship. It frustrates genuine scholarship when we see people tinkering with the word and trying to explain it away other than what Yah said it ought to. As we indicated earlier, these 54 scholarly Englishmen decided that because they were living in a time when the black man was not considered to be anything other than slaves, they decided to change just one word, and it messes up the whole context. Not only did they do that, they took out a large portion of the Old Testament and 50% of the New Testament and gave the slaves a redacted, reduced Bible and says, read this. And the poor slaves, having gone through and continues to go through this puissant state of anxiety, all he sees is that the Bible is talking about a set of people, a group of people other than himself. Because by that time, the artists, the Renaissance artists, Picasso, Michelangelo, and the others, they had used their paintbrushes and they had turned every bronze-looking character in the Bible white and European. They had done that. And it wasn't an oversight, it was deliberate. It was deliberate. And so it was easy now for those who came to the Americas and to Britain to use that as a context to put our people in slavery. And even now when we tell our people that you were made in the image of your Messiah, they have difficulty believing it. Come with me again. Let us remind ourselves. We're not preaching color, but If he's white and it didn't bother you, if you find out that he's black, it shouldn't bother you either. Come with me to the book of Chisaon, that's Revelation, and we will take chapter 1, and we will do verse 12. Let's give you the context. Here is Yohanan, is an apostle, is an ambassador of the kingdom of Yah. And because he's so faithful and he speaks the word the way it should be spoken, even in contemporary times, the emperor Domitian banished him to the island of Patmos for his faith. If you're persecuted for righteousness, what must you do? You're blessed, you're Baruch. So he's there. And don't think when they put you in chains, you're alone. Yohanan said, while I'm there in this little island in the Aegean Sea, over there in Turkey, I had a vision. I heard a voice. And so he turned, as most of us would if we hear a voice, we want to know who's speaking. Come with me to verse 12, chapter 1, Revelation. And I turned to see the voice that spoke with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. I saw 7 assemblies. Don't miss that. And I want to understand it. These 7 golden candlesticks, they are not 7 denominational high street churches. They are house assemblies, because at this time when John was there, you could not worship openly. You had to do it secretly. It was only in 313, the Milan Edict, that made Christianity free to worship openly. Understand it. These are house churches. If you're not an apostle and an ambassador, you would even know this about your own country. So Yohanan said, I looked, and I turned, and I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to his foot, and girt about the paps with golden girdle. His head and his hairs were like wool. Did you hear me? Now, make the contrast between what the word picture here given by Yohanan, that his hair is like wool, and look at it in the context of what they have drawn with their paintbrushes in Europe, and said he had long hair with blue eyes, white skin, and he looks like a Republican. Notice what Shaul did. Shaul was a Roman citizen. Understand that. He was preaching at a time when Rome was in rule. Yeshua grew up in an oppressive environment because Rome was oppressive. And the idea was that if he's the Messiah, he is going to drive Rome out of town. The point I'm making is this: Shaul and Yeshua understood the system that Rome had. Rome had senators. Rome had ambassadors. So Paul did not say, I am a senator. He said, I am an ambassador of the kingdom. And all of you are ambassadors, not senators. So even though they give the senator a higher ranking, the senator is only dealing with his little patch, his little domain here. We are dealing with a whole kingdom. We represent a whole kingdom. So the word says in verse 14 of chapter 1, Revelation, his head, his hairs were like wool, as white as snow is the Ancient of Days. And his eyes were as the flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, burnished brass, as if they were burned in a furnace, and his voice as a sound of many waters. So Yohanan says the Messiah had bronze skin, he had dark skin. He looked like the people from Africa. He looked like the Shemitic black people. He looked like the Phalashian Jew. He looked like you and I because his hair was like you and his feet had the same color. The paintbrushes of Europe changed all that. They changed it. They introduced a contradiction into the word of Yah. That's what they did. And so now we who being apostles, we who being representations of the kingdom, we must understand exactly what the Constitution says. And so we need not hang into the closet, into the gallery of our homes and churches anymore these graven images. The commandment says don't do that. No graven images. Take the word picture and put that in the gallery of your mind. He has skin that is burnished brass, and his hair is like wool, like yours. You look like him, and you were created in his image. That's the word of Yah. We ought not to be ashamed to preach it that way. That makes you an ambassador of the kingdom, because you are an heir to the kingdom. You look like him. And so we need to understand that we must not do like them and attribute dishonesty to the word of Yah. We can't do that. We cannot do that, otherwise we become persona non grata. And so we don't vote the king into power. In America, the power lies in the people. Often you hear, we the people. In a kingdom, the kingdom constitution is the word of Yah. Yeshua said in Yohanan 10, verses 38, but if I do, though ye believe not me, believe the works, that ye may know and believe that the Father is in me. Did you hear me? And I in him. Therefore they sought again to take him, but he escaped out of their hand and went away beyond Jordan, that's the Jordan, into the place where Yohanan at first immersed, and there he abode. So we're talking about someone who is a plenipotentiary representative of the kingdom. This is an official who has been granted full power to act on behalf of their government, often in a foreign or international matters. So this earth is not our home. We're simply here as ambassador representing our kingdom, and we are the plenipotentiary representative. We have been given full powers. That which you bind on earth is also bound in heaven. That's why Yeshua said, when they touch you, if any should touch one of you, it would be better to put a millstone around his neck. So we don't have to fight them. And so that gives you good reason now to join me in the book of Daniel. Come with me to Daniel, and we will take chapter 10. We will take chapter 10. The word says, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belshazzar. See, whenever you go in a foreign land, when you're taken into captivity, they change your name and give you their culture. He's no longer called Daniel, he's called Belshazzar. That's what they do. Many of us wear names that are not ours. See a man who is as black as the ace of spades, and his name is Mr. White or Mr. Brown. Come on. I can live with Mr. Brown because that's the natural color of the earth in which he was created. But Mr. White? So they give us names. I just want to make that point, not a contention. And the word says, and in those days I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks, and I ate pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth. Neither did I anoint myself at all till the whole 3 weeks were fulfilled. 21 days. He's having some problems. He's having some problems in Persia. But he's an ambassador in that kingdom. You remember the time when they told him that, listen, if you don't bow down to this image and worship, you're finished. You're finito. And he went home and opened his window. Because Daniel knew that as an ambassador representing the kingdom of Yahweh, as a plenipotentiary representative, he has all power. He can call up on the kingdom of Yah, and they will send him representative. So Daniel now has a problem in Persia, and he prayed. He prayed. And what happened? Verse 8, therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness had turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, that was I in deep sleep on my face, and my face towards the ground. And behold, a hand touched me, which set me up on my knees and upon the palms of hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. I said, when you are an ambassador and anything happens to you and you go to the embassy, the headquarters of that domain, it is the duty of the country that you represent to send help. Daniel is praying, and he's praying to the head of his kingdom, Yahweh, who sends help. And when the help comes, he's trembling. Then said he unto me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that did I set thine heart to understand. To what? To understand and to chasten thyself before thy Elohim. Thy words were heard. Your prayer, Daniel, was heard. And I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia, the prince of darkness, Satan, was working through the prince of Persia to stop us coming, withstood me 21 days, 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days. I'm coming to tell you what's going to happen to the people, your people, Daniel, the same people who do the things you do, who believe in the same Yah that you do, and practice the same thing, even down until the time of America and Laodicea and Britain. I'm going to tell you, that's why I've come to do. And when he had spoken such words to me, I set my face towards the ground, and I became dumb. And behold, one like the similitude of the sons of men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spake and said unto him that stood before me, O my sire, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. For how can the servant of this my master talk with this my master? For as for me, straightway there remaineth no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man when he asked and help. And the word says, O man, greatly beloved. Daniel, you're greatly beloved. Fear not, peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened and said, Let my master speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, Knowest thou whereas I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia will come. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things but Michael, your prince. He's saying, I'm now fighting with you in Persia, but another empire is coming after Greece, the same empire that gives us democracy. And this democracy kingdom of Greece will stretch all the way to the end time, and the kingdoms of the world will employ this democracy and impose it on the people. And in everything they do, they will want to vote it in. But the kingdom of where I come from, the king of that kingdom, his word is law, Daniel. So when Paul says that I have great conflicts with those in Laodicea, you understand what he's saying? You cannot vote against Yah's word. His word is law. So when you ask people, so how could it be that you are a representative of the kingdom of Yah? And the Constitution says, remember the seventh day to keep it holy, and you give him the first day of the week. You give him a kind of non sequitur response to what he has said. How could you do that? He said you must keep the feast day, and you give him Christmas. You give him Easter. You give him Halloween. Is that what you tell your people or the foreign people, that in your kingdom they keep Christmas and they keep Halloween? No, in our kingdom, we tell them we keep the feast days, we keep the festival, and we keep the Sabbath, because that's in the constitution of the kingdom in which we serve. May it be that we understand these things, and we cannot lean upon the denominational assemblies. So Pilate said, if you turn with me to Yohanan, and we'll close on this, Yohanan 18 and verse 37. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou a king then? Yeshua answered, Thou sayest, I am a king. I am a sovereign. To this end was I born. I was born to reign in the kingdom. And for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth heareth me. Everyone that is pursuing truth, everyone that listens to truth, everyone that believes in truth, everyone that practices truth, listens to Yeshua. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Not only that, keep the feast days, all of them. That's how you become an ambassador of the kingdom. In Yeshua's name I pray. Hallelujah. Amen.